Hi everybody, welcome back to the Read Aloud, yay! Okay, uh, sorry, I'm a little giddy because it's snowing outside and it's so beautiful, so I thought I'd take this time to record, and we're gonna have a bit of a palate cleanser because the last two stories we did were a little bit heavy, in different ways. All right, so we're going to be reading Grimm's Fairy Stories by Jacob Grimm and Wilhelm Grimm. We're going to be reading it in English because my German is not good. Hi, Princess. Princess, you're here early. We haven't even started. Oh, bye. Where was I? Okay, yes. So obviously there are a lot of stories here, and we're just going to read one for now. But if you guys like hearing Grimm's Fairy Stories, we can come back and do more. So there's 25 stories. So what I'm going to do is roll a d20, which obviously is 1 through 20, so I guess the last 5 stories. But here we go. We're going to do a little random. Number 10. 1, 2, and 10. The Golden Goose. Oh, and because there are woodcuts, I will just read this thing. Pen and ink sketches are by R. Emmett Owen. And since they're included in the Gutenberg distribution, I believe that we're okay. Okay, here we are, the Golden Goose. There was once a man who had 3 sons. The youngest was called Dummerly. I'm sorry, his name is Dummerly? Oh no. The youngest was called Dummerly, and was on all occasions scorned and ill-treated by the whole family. Oh yeah, they named him Dummerly. Oh, terrible. It happened that the eldest took it into his head one day to go into the forest to cut wood, and his mother gave him a delicious meat pie and a bottle of wine to take with him, that he might sustain himself at his work. As he went into the forest, a little old man bid him good day, and said, "Give me a little bit of meat from your pie, and a little wine out of your flask. I am very hungry and thirsty." But this clever young man said, "Give you my meat and wine? No, I thank you. There will not be enough left for me." And he went on his way. He soon began to chop down a tree, but he had not worked long before he missed his stroke and cut himself, and was obliged to go home and have the wound bound up. Now, it was the little old man who caused him this mischief. Next, the second son went out to work, and his mother gave him too a meat pie and a bottle of wine. And the same little old man encountered him also, and begged him for something to eat and drink. But he, too, thought himself extremely clever, and said, "Whatever you get, I shall be without, so go your way." The little man made sure that he should have his reward, and the second stroke that he struck at a tree hit him on the leg, so that he, too, was compelled to go home. You know, I wonder if, it's not just that you're not sharing, but that you're being rude about it. Yeah. Everybody in these stories are always so terrible. I mean, except for the main character. I guess that's the point. We'll see. Then Dummerly said, "Father, I should like to go and cut fuel too." But his father replied, "Your brothers have both maimed themselves. You had better stop at home, for you know nothing of the job." I mean, he's got a point. I mean, yeah, he's got a point there. Kid, everybody who's gone out on this mission has cut themselves. I don't know if I want to send any more kids out. But Dummerly was very urgent, and at last his father said, "Go your way. You will be wiser when you have suffered from your foolishness." And his mother gave him only some dry bread and a bottle of sour ale. But when he went into the forest, he met the little old man, who said, "Give me some meat and drink, for I'm very hungry and thirsty." Dummerly said, "I have nothing but dry bread and sour beer. If that will do for you, we will sit down and eat it together." So they sat down, and when the lad took out his bread, behold, it was turned into a splendid meat pie, and his sour beer became delicious wine. They ate and drank heartily, and when they had finished, the little man said, "As you have a kind heart, and have been willing to share everything with me, I will bring good to you. There stands an old tree. Chop it down, and you will find something at the root." Then he took his leave and went away. Okay, I'm going to have a tea break. Because it's all snowy and cold out, I decided it was a special occasion. So today I actually have homemade chai tea for my own spicy spice blend. It's very yummy. It's slightly too peppery, if I'm honest, but, you know, that's what happens when you make stuff yourself. Alright, I haven't actually read this before. So far it's a pretty standard start as far as fairy tales go. So, yeah, let's see what happens. Presumably there's a goose at some point. Dummerly set to work and cut down the tree, and when it fell he discovered in a hollow under the roots a goose with plumage of pure gold. He took it up and went on to an inn where he proposed to sleep for the night. Wait. He finds the fucking goose and then he just leaves. He doesn't go back home. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Just like gets the goose. Yeah, my family sucks. Let's just leave. Okay, I'm on board with Dummerly now. Okay. The landlord had 3 daughters, and when they saw the goose, they were very curious to find out what this wonderful bird could be, and wished very much to pluck one of the feathers out of its tail. At last the eldest said, "I must and will have a feather." So she waited till his back was turned, and then caught hold of the goose by the wing, but to her great surprise, there she stuck, for neither hand nor finger could she pull away again. Presently in came the second sister, and thought to have a feather too, but the instant she touched her sister, there she too hung fast. At last came the third, and desired a feather, but the other 2 cried out, "Keep away! For heaven's sake, keep away!" However, she did not understand what they meant. "If they're there," thought she, "I may as well be there too." So she went up to them, but the moment she touched her sisters, she stuck fast, and hung to the goose as they did, and so they abode with the goose all night. What? Oh, this is not the story I thought it was. Wait, so was Dummerly asleep? Or was he just sitting there reading a book or something as these girls just awkwardly attach themselves to the goose? Oh, what? Okay. This is great. The next morning Dummerly carried off the goose under his arm and took no heed of the 3 girls, but went out with them sticking fast behind, and wherever he journeyed the 3 were obliged to follow, whether they wished or not, as fast as their legs could carry them. So he just sitting there. I'm sorry. That's just so fucking funny. Oh, the goose noises are actually applicable this time, aren't they? Oh, I'm so glad that's how I'm bleeping out my swears. Oh, that's perfect. So yeah, he was totally just sitting there going, "These bitches are trying to steal my goose. Alright, well, come on, posse." In the middle of a field, the parson met them, and when he saw the procession, he said, "Are you not ashamed of yourselves, you bold girls, to run after a young man like that over the fields? Is that proper behavior?" Then he took the youngest by the hand to lead her away, but the moment he touched her, he, too, hung fast, and followed the procession. Presently up came the clerk, and when he saw his master, the parson, running after the 3 girls, he was greatly surprised. He said, Hello, your reverence, whither so fast? There is a christening today." "Princess, you've returned. Come here." "Nope, you have to say hi to everybody. There's a christening today." She does not want to go out on the porch. It is so cold. You want to read the Golden Goose with us, Princess? Let's see, where were we? Then he ran up and caught him by the gown, and instantly he was fast too. As the 5 were thus trudging along, one after another, they met 2 laborers and their mattocks coming from work, and the parson called out to them to set him free, but hardly had they touched him when they too joined the ranks, and so made 7, all running after Dummerly and his goose. At last they came to a city, where reigned a king who had only a daughter. The princess was of so thoughtful and serious a turn of mind that no one could make her laugh, and the king had announced to all the world that whoever could make her laugh should have her for his wife. When the young man heard of this, he went to her with the goose and all its followers, and as soon as she saw the 7 all hanging together and running about, treading on each other's heels, she could not help bursting into a long and loud laugh. Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too, bitch. Then Dummerly claimed her for his bride, the wedding took place, and he was heir to the kingdom, and lived long and happily with his wife. The end. Aw. Okay. I mean, they're fairy stories, so they're gonna be a certain amount of, like, you know, mundane, not mundane. Oh, okay. Well, that took less than 15 minutes, even with my nannering and laughing. So I guess we'll just keep reading until we hit a more reasonable mark. I'm going to take a tea break. Delicious tea. Okay, so that was the Golden Goose. I've heard versions of that, clearly, but never, like, with Dummerly. This stone cold badass. Like, everyone in my family is shit. I'm gonna go just chill out with this old dude in the forest. Oh, I got a golden goose. Fuck my family, I'm never going back there. They were all goes to an inn. These bitches are stealing my goose. Oh, well, how can we make this work for me? And I mean, he had to have known that that was the rule there. So, like, I approve of Dummerly just being entirely too smart. Okay, that was fun. A bit simply written, but that's what we're expecting with fairy tales. Alright, let's do another one. 3. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Hansel and Gretel. You know, I wonder, because I was a little worried that these were going to be super dark, because that's what I've always heard about the original Grimm's fairy tales. I think these are the originals, so that one wasn't too bad. Let's see what Hansel and Gretel is like, though, because this one definitely has cannibalism, which it's not a party until the cannibalism starts. Once upon a time, there dwelt near a large wood a poor woodcutter, with his wife and 2 children by his former marriage, a little boy called Hansel, and a girl named Gretel. He had little enough to break or bite, and once, when there was a great famine in the land, he could not procure even his daily bread. And as he was lying thinking in his bed one evening, rolling about for trouble, he sighed, and said to his wife, "What will become of us? How can we feed our children when we have no more than we can eat ourselves?" "Now then, my husband," answered she, "we will lead them away quite early in the morning into the thickest part of the wood, and there make them a fire, and give them each a little piece of bread. Then we will go to our work and leave them alone, so they will not find the way home again, and we shall be freed from them." "No, wife," replied he, "that I can never do. How can you bring your heart to leave my children all alone in the woods, for all the wild beasts will soon come and tear them to pieces?" I mean, we're not surprised here. This is how Hansel and Gretel always goes. I've noticed, though, that, like, modern retellings makes it a stepmom rather than their actual mom. And it's like, why, like, actual moms can be horrible monsters, too. And there's a lot of stepmothers who are really nice, so, like, it kind of ruins things. I don't know why that makes it better in their mind to make it not a biological mother who betrays you. "Oh, you simpleton," said she. "Then we must all 4 die of hunger. You had better plan the coffins for us." But she left him no peace till he consented, saying, "Ah, but I shall regret the poor children." The 2 children, however, had not gone to sleep for very hunger, and so they overheard what the mother had said to the father. Gretel wept bitterly, and said to Hansel, "What will become of us?" "Be quiet, Gretel," said he. "Do not cry. I will soon help you." And as soon as their parents had fallen asleep, he got up, put on his coat, and unbarring the back door, slipped out. The moon shone brilliantly, and the white pebbles which lay before the door seemed like silver pieces. They glittered so brightly. Hansel stooped down, and put as many into his pocket as it would hold. Then going back, he said to Gretel, "Be comforted, dear sister, and sleep in peace. God will not forsake us." And so saying, he went to bed again. The next morning, before the sun arose, the wife went and awoke the 2 children. "Get up, you lazy things! We are going into the forest to chop wood." Then she gave them each a piece of bread, saying, "There is something for your dinner. Do not eat it before the time, for you will get nothing else." Gretel took the bread into her apron, for Hansel's pocket was full of pebbles, and so they all set out upon their way. When they had gone a little distance, Hansel stood still and peeped back at the house, and thus he repeated several times, till his father said, "Hansel, what are you peeping at, and why do you lag behind? Take care and remember your legs." That's remember your legs. What a great line. Oh, I gotta use that. I gotta use that next time I'm escorting slow children. Remember your legs. I love it. "Ah, father," said Hansel, "I am looking at my white cat sitting upon the roof of the house and trying to say goodbye." "You simpleton," said the wife, "that is not a cat. It is only the sun shining on the white chimney." But in reality, Hansel was not looking at a cat, but every time he stopped, he dropped a pebble out of his pocket upon the path. You know, this part always confused me because, how is he going to see the pebbles? I mean, I guess there's not necessarily a lot of rocks in the ground, but still, better be some very obvious pebbles. I guess they're pale. When they came to the middle of the forest, the father told the children to collect wood, and he would make them a fire, so that they should not be cold. So Hansel and Gretel gathered together quite a little mountain of twigs. Then they set fire to them, and as the flame burnt up high, the wife said, "Now, you children, lie down near the fire and rest yourselves, while we go into the forest and chop wood. When we are ready, I will come and call you." Hansel and Gretel sat down by the fire, and when it was noon, each ate the piece of bread, and because they could hear the blows of an axe, they thought their father was near. But it was not an axe. It was a branch which he had bound to a withered tree, so as to be blown to and fro by the wind. Wow, that's, for someone who didn't want to abandon the kids in the first place, that's really clever. I see where Hansel got it. Wow, what a devious thing. They waited so long that at last their eyes closed from weariness, and they fell fast asleep. When they awoke, it was quite dark, and Gretel began to cry. "How shall we get out of the wood?" But Hansel tried to comfort her, Wait, did Hansel not tell her the plan? What a little jerk. But Hansel tried to comfort her by saying, "Wait a little till the moon rises, then we will quickly find the way." Oh, I see. The moon makes the pebbles obvious. That was his plan. Aren't they in the forest, though? The moon soon shone forth, and Hansel, taking his sister's hand, followed the pebbles, which glittered like new coined silver pieces, and showed them the path. All night long they walked on, and as day broke they came to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the wife opened it and saw Hansel and Gretel, she exclaimed, "You wicked children! Why did you sleep so long in the wood? We thought you were never coming home again." But their father was very glad, for it had grieved his heart to leave them all alone. It grieved your heart to trick them with the branch thing. Also, wow, what a gaslighty bitch. I mean, obviously it's Hansel and Gretel, we know this story, but still, what a gaslighty bitch. Not long afterward, there was again great scarcity in every corner of the land, and one night the children overheard their stepmother saying to their father, "Everything is again consumed. We have only half a loaf left, and then the song is ended. The children must be sent away. We will take them deeper into the wood, so that they may not find the way out again. It is the only means of escape for us." But her husband felt heavy at heart, and thought it was better to share the last crust with the children. His wife, however, would listen to nothing that he said, and scolded and reproached him without end. He who says A must say B too, and he who consents the first time must also the second. No! What? Obviously she was proven wrong the first time, because they're still here. Wow. No, I know that the mother is supposed to be the bad guy here, but really the father is the extra disgusting one for not standing up for his kids. Wow. The children, however, had heard the conversation as they lay awake, and as soon as the old people went to sleep, Hansel got up, intending to pick up some pebbles as before, but the wife had locked the door so that he could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted Gretel, saying, "Do not cry, sleep in quiet, and God will not forsake us." Early in the morning the stepmother came and pulled them out of bed, and gave them each a slice of bread, which was still smaller than the former piece. On the way, Hansel broke his in his pocket, and stooping every now and then, dropped a crumb upon the path. "Hansel, why do you stop and look about?" said the father. "Keep in the path." "I'm looking at my little dove," answered Hansel, nodding a good-bye to me. "Simpleton," said the wife, "that is no dove, but only the sun shining on the chimney." But Hansel still kept dropping crumbs as he went along. The mother led the children deep into the woods, where they had never been before, and there, making an immense fire, she said to them, "Sit down here and rest, and when you feel tired you can sleep for a little while. We are going into the forest to hew wood, and in the evening, when we are ready, we will come and fetch you." When noon came, Gretel shared her bread with Hansel, who had strewn his on the path. Then they went to sleep. But the evening arrived, and no one came to visit the poor children, and in the dark night they awoke, and Hansel comforted his sister by saying, "Only wait, Gretel, till the moon comes out. Then we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have dropped, and that will show us the way home." The moon shone, and they got up, but they could not see any crumbs, for the thousands of birds which had been flying about in the woods and fields had picked them all up. Hansel kept saying to Gretel, "We will soon find the way." But they did not, and they walked the whole night long and the next day. But still they did not come out of the wood, and they got so hungry, for they had nothing to eat but the berries which they found upon the bushes. Soon they got so tired that they could not drag themselves along, so they lay down under a tree and went to sleep. It was now the third morning since they had left their father's house, and still they walked on, but they only got deeper and deeper into the wood, and Hansel saw that if help did not come very soon they would die of hunger. At about noonday they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting upon a bough, which sang so sweetly that they stood still and listened to it. It soon ceased, and spreading its wings flew off, and they followed it until it arrived at a cottage, upon the roof of which it perched, and when they went up close to it they saw that the cottage was made of bread and cakes, and the window-panes were of clear sugar. Surely these children have been raised... I've always wondered this, these children have been raised in a culture where fairies and witches and all that nonsense was a thing. So isn't the whole house made of food a huge red flag? Or did they think that they wandered into some noble's pleasure garden where they were making a big old statue? I guess we don't really need to overanalyze it. What a horrible thing to do that would be, though. The peasants have a famine. I'm going to make a house for my guests out of candy. "We will go in there," said Hansel, "and have a glorious feast. I will eat a piece of the roof, and you can eat the window. Will they not be sweet?" So Hansel reached up and broke off a piece of roof in order to see how it tasted, while Gretel stepped up to the window and began to bite it. She's just... Sorry, I just got an image of a little girl pressed up against the window with her tongue out going... Have you ever tried to bite a flat surface? Okay. Then a sweet voice called out into the room. "Tip-tap, tip-tap, who raps at my door?" And the children answered, the wind and the child of heaven." And they went on eating without interruption. Who's eating my house? No one. Munch, munch, munch. Hansel thought the roof tasted very nice, so he tore off a great piece, while Gretel broke a large round pane out of the window, and sat down quite contentedly. Just then the door opened, and a very old woman, walking upon crutches, came out. Hansel and Gretel were so frightened that they let fall what they had in their hands, but the old woman, nodding her head, said, "Ah, you dear children, what has brought you here? Come in and stop with me, and no harm shall befall you." And so saying, she took them both by the hand and led them into her cottage. A good meal of milk and pancakes, with sugar, apples, and nuts, was spread on the table, and in the back room were 2 nice little beds covered with white, where Hansel and Gretel laid themselves down and thought themselves in heaven. The old woman behaved very kindly to them, but in reality she was a wicked witch who waylaid children, and built the bread house in order to entice them in. But as soon as they were in her power, she killed them, cooked them and ate them, and made a great festival of the day. Witches have red eyes and cannot see very far. They have a fine sense of smelling like wild beasts, so that they know when children approach them. Oh my gosh, is this where Roald Dahl got that description of witches from his book? You know what I mean, right? The witches, the Roald Dahl book, where they had the great sense of smell. Is it from this? This isn't included in any of the retellings with the smelling thing. Oh, wow, okay. When Hansel and Gretel came near the witch's house, she laughed wickedly, saying, "Here come two who shall not escape me." And early in the morning, before they awoke, she went up to them and saw how lovingly they lay sleeping, with their chubby red cheeks, and she mumbled to herself, "'Twill be a good bite." Then she took up Hansel with her rough hands and shut him up in a little cage with a lattice door, and although he screamed loudly, it was no use. Gretel came next, and shaking her till she awoke, the witch said, "Get up, you lazy thing, and fetch some water to cook something good for your brother, who must remain in that stall and get fat. When he is fat enough, I shall eat him." Gretel began to cry, but it was all useless, for the old witch made her do as she wished. So a nice meal was cooked for Hansel, but Gretel got nothing but a crab's claw. Are they near the ocean? Why is there a crab's claw? I mean, crab's pretty tasty. Every morning the old witch came to the cage and said, "Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel whether you are getting fat." But Hansel used to stretch out a bone, and the old woman, having very bad sight, thought it was his finger, and wondered very much that he did not get fatter. Yeah, 'cause he's going to intentionally get fat for you to eat him. When 4 weeks had passed, and Hansel still kept quite lean, she lost all her patience, and would not wait any longer. "Gretel," she called out in a passion, "get some water quickly. Be Hansel fat or lean, this morning I will kill and cook him." Oh, how the poor little sister grieved, as she was forced to fetch the water, and fast the tears ran down her cheeks. "Dear good God, help us now," she exclaimed. "Had we only been eaten by the wild beasts in the wood, then we should have all died together." But the old witch called out, "Leave off that noise, it will not help you a bit." So early in the morning Gretel was forced to go out and fill the kettle and make a fire. "First, we will bake. However," said the old woman, "I have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough." And so saying, she pushed poor Gretel up to the oven, out of which the flames were burning fiercely. "Creep in," said the witch, "and see if it is hot enough, and then we will put in the bread." But she intended, when Gretel got in, to shut up the oven and let her bake, so that she might eat her as well as Hansel. Gretel perceived what her thoughts were, and said, "I don't know how to do it. How shall I get in?" Kids do this, is the thing. They're like, "Here, why don't we make a picture? I don't know how." Okay, well, you put it in your hand and you do it. You do it for me. It's like this whole thing. "You stupid goose," said she. "The opening is big enough. See, I could even get in myself." And she got up and put her head into the oven. Then Gretel gave her a push so that she fell right in. Then shutting the iron door, she bolted it. Oh, how horribly she howled! But Gretel ran away and left the ungodly witch to burn to ashes. That is really bad. Could a bread oven get hot enough to kill you? Is that a thing? I guess she would have no way of getting out, so she'd be horribly burned, and then even if the fire went out, I never actually thought about that before. That's a really horrible way to die. Oh my goodness. I'm also not entirely sure if I should be bleeping all of this die and kill stuff. I know people have complained about that YouTube, takes issue if you don't say unalive. We'll see. See if it gets through. This is a learning process, right? Right. Back to Gretel. Now she ran to Hansel, and opening his door, called out, "Hansel, we are saved! The old witch is dead!" So he sprang out, like a bird out of his cage when the door is opened, and they were so glad that they fell upon each other's neck and kissed each other over and over again. And now, as there was nothing to fear, they went into the witch's house, where in every corner were caskets full of pearls and precious stones. "These are better than pebbles," said Hansel, putting as many into his pocket as it would hold, while Gretel thought, "I will take some too," and filled her apron full. "We must be off now," said Hansel, "and get out of this enchanted forest." How does he know it's enchanted, just because a witch was there? But when they had walked for 2 hours, they came to a large piece of water. We cannot get over, said Hansel. I can see no bridge at all. And there's no boat either, said Gretel. But there swims a white duck, and I will ask her to help us over. And she sang, Little duck, good little duck, Gretel and Hansel, here we stand. There is neither still nor bridge. Take us on your back to land. So the duck came to them, and Hansel sat himself on, and bade his sister sit behind him. No, answered Gretel, that will be too much for the duck. She shall take us over one at a time. This the good little bird did, and when both were happily arrived on the other side, and had gone a little way, they came to a well-known wood, which they knew the better every step they went, and at last they perceived their father's house. When they began to run, and bursting into the house, they fell into their father's arms. He had not one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest, and his wife was dead. His wife is just dead? Did she starve to death? What do you mean his wife is dead? What? When did that happen? What? Okay, she's just dead. Cool. Also, what is that? Why is there a duck? Since when is there a duck in this story? Gretel shook her apron, and the pearls and precious stones rolled out upon the floor, and Hansel threw down one handful after the other out of his pocket. Then all their sorrows were ended, and they lived together in great happiness. My tale is done. There runs a mouse. Whoever catches her may make a great, great cap out of her fur. What? What? What kind? How? Why are you ending this? What a weird way to end the story. Why are we making caps out of mice fur? Did I miss something? Okay, weird. That was, like, expected up until the very end, and then it got very weird. Okay, let's see. I think we have time for one more, especially if it's a short one. That one was a little bit longer. Okay, let's do one more. 3 is a perfect number. We're doing fairy stories, right? That means we do 3. Ooh, I rolled a 20. Oh my gosh, you guys, I rolled a 20. That's exciting. Oh, it's meant to be. All right, let's see what number 20 is. The Frog Prince. Well, okay. We can read The Frog Prince. It doesn't look very long. I was hoping for one that nobody's heard before, but no, we'll keep it. Nat 20. Let's see. I bet it gets really ridiculous. In the olden time, when wishing was having, there lived a king, whose daughters were all beautiful, but the youngest was so exceedingly beautiful that the sun himself, although he saw her very, very often, was delighted every time she came out into the sunshine. Near the castle of this king was a large and gloomy forest, where in the midst stood an old lime tree, beneath whose branches splashed a little fountain. So whenever it was very hot, the king's youngest daughter ran off into this wood, and sat down by the side of the fountain, and, when she felt dull, would often divert herself by throwing a golden ball up into the air and catching it again. And this was her favorite amusement. Now, one day, it happened that this golden ball, when the king's daughter threw it into the air, did not fall down into her hand, but onto the grass, and then it rolled right into the fountain. What kind of fountain doesn't have, like, a lip? That's weird. That's a weird design for a fountain. The king's daughter followed the ball with her eyes, but it disappeared beneath the water, which was so deep that she could not see the bottom. That is also... What a weird fountain! This is... I wonder if that's a mistranslation. Then she began to lament, and to cry more loudly, and as she cried, a voice called out, Why weepest thou, O king's daughter? Thy tears would melt even a stone to pity. She looked around to the spot whence the voice came, and saw a frog stretching his thick, ugly head out of the water. Oh, you old water paddler, said she, was it you that spoke? I am weeping for my golden ball, which bounced away from me into the water. Be quiet, and do not cry, replied the frog. I can give thee good assistance, but what wilt thou give me if I succeed in fetching thy plaything up again? Creeper frog. What a creepy frog. How old is she? She's the youngest, and she's playing with a ball. I mean, I would do that too, though, so... We're going to assume that she and the frog are both over 18. What would you like, dear frog? Said she. My dresses, my pearls and jewels, or the golden crown which I wear? The frog replied, Dresses or jewels or golden crowns are not for me. But if thou wilt love me, and let me be thy companion and playmate, and sit at thy table, and eat from thy little golden plate, and drink out of thy cup, and sleep in thy little bed, if thou wilt promise to me all these things, then I will dive down and fetch up thy golden ball. I can't tell if this is less or more creepy or the same creepy as when we found out that Ron's rat in Harry Potter was a middle-aged man. "Oh, I will promise you all," said she, "if you will only give me my golden ball." But she thought to herself, "What is this silly frog chattering about? Let him stay in the water with his equals. He can never enter into society." Wow, that's... Yeah, okay, she's a snooty teenager. Got you. That's very on the nose. Then the frog, as soon as he had received her promise, drew his head under the water and dived down. Presently he swam up again with the little golden ball in his mouth, and threw it on the grass. I mean, assuming it's the size of a tennis ball, that is an immense frog. Oh my gosh, that is such a big frog. The king's daughter was full of joy when she again saw her beautiful plaything, and taking it up, she ran off immediately. "Stop, stop!" cried the frog. "Take me with thee. I cannot run as thou canst." But this croaking was of no avail. Although it was loud enough, the king's daughter did not hear it, but, hastening home, soon forgot the poor frog, who was obliged to leap back into the fountain. I guess talking frogs that you trick are a mundane thing for this girl. The next day, when the king's daughter was sitting at table with her father and all his courtiers, and was eating from her own little golden plate, something was heard coming up the marble stairs. Splish, splash, splish, splash, splish, splash. And when it arrived at the top, it knocked at the door, and a voice said, "Open the door, thou youngest daughter of the king." So she arose. I'm sorry, the princess is opening a door by herself. Ridiculous. So she arose and went to see who it was that called to her. But when she opened the door and caught sight of the frog, she shut it again very quickly. Open the door, it's a frog. Bang, shut the door. But when she opened the door and caught sight of the frog, she shut it again very quickly and with great passion, and sat down at the table looking exceedingly pale. But the king perceived that her heart was beating violently, and asked her whether it was a giant who had come to fetch her away who stood at the door. Is he joking, or is that also a mundane thing that happens in this country? "Oh, no," answered she. "It is no giant, but an ugly frog." "What does the frog want with you?" said the king. "Oh, dear father, yesterday I was playing by the fountain. My golden ball fell into the water, and this frog fetched it up again because I cried so much. But first I must tell you, he pressed me so much that I promised him he should be my companion. I never thought that he could come out of water, but somehow he has managed to jump out, and now he wants to come in here." Just like, perfectly normal things. At that moment there was another knock, and a voice said, "King's daughter, youngest, open the door. Hast thou forgotten thy promises made, at the fountain so clear, 'neath the lime tree's shade? King's daughter, youngest, open the door." He's a poet now, the frog. Then the king said, "What you have promised you must perform. Go let him in." So the king's daughter went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in after her, right up to her chair, and as soon as she was seated, he said, "Lift me up." But she hesitated so long that the king had to order her to obey. Okay, the king has got to be joking at this point. I'm sure this is hilarious. And as soon as the frog sat on the chair, he jumped onto the table and said, "Now push thy plate near me, that we may eat together." And she did so, but as everyone noticed, very unwillingly. The frog seemed to relish his dinner very much, but every bit that the king's daughter ate nearly choked her, till at last the frog said, "I have satisfied my hunger, and feel very tired. Wilt thou carry me upstairs now into thy chamber, and make thy bed ready that we may sleep together?" At this speech the king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog, and dared not touch him, and besides, he actually wanted to sleep in her own beautiful clean bed. This poor girl. Oh, and her dad's just letting this happen. This poor girl, this must be so embarrassing. It's not her fault. She shouldn't have made the promise. She's a princess. I'm sure she could have gotten another golden ball. But just, Her dad's making her do it and the courtiers are there. Is she really such a bad daughter that he'd want to embarrass her this much? What is the rest of the story? Oh, wow. But her tears only made the king very angry, and he said, "He who helped you in the time of your trouble must not now be despised." So she took the frog up with 2 fingers, oh, that's gotta hurt, and put him into a corner of her chamber. But as she lay in her bed, he crept up to it and said, "I am so very tired that I shall sleep well. Do take me up, or I will tell thy father." This speech put the king's daughter into a terrible passion, and catching the frog up, she threw him with all her strength against the wall, saying, "Now you will be quiet, you ugly frog." Yeah, I'm not sure whose side I'm on in this, because this is intensely creepy. Like, if we didn't know it was, I mean, you know, it's the prince, it's an actual human being, which makes it creepier. But, like, also being blackmailed by a regular frog would be weird. Okay, let's see what his excuse is. But as he fell, he was changed from a frog into a handsome prince with beautiful eyes, who after a little while became her dear companion and betrothed. What? Oh, we're skipping the part. What? 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 If I remember this story right, it was more of a like, oh, I had to be a jackass so that you would break the curse. But it's just skipping ahead like, he was a jackass, but he's pretty, so they're getting married now. Or is this one of those horrible situations where it's like, oh, well, you were alone with this man, so technically you have to marry him. Oh, God, what is this story? One morning, Henry, trusted servant of the prince, came for them with a carriage. When his master was changed into a frog, trusty Henry had grieved so much that he had bound 3 iron bands around his heart, for fear it should break with grief and sorrow. Who the fuck is Henry? Why is Henry here suddenly? The faithful Henry, who was also the trusty Henry, helped in the bride and bridegroom and placed himself in the seat behind, full of joy at his master's release. They had not proceeded far when the prince heard a crack, as if something had broken behind the carriage. So he put his head out the window and asked trusty Henry what was broken. And faithful Henry answered, "It was not the carriage, my master, but an iron band which I bound around my heart when it was in such grief because you were changed into a frog." I'm so confused by Henry. Why is Henry here? What is this thing about the iron band around his heart? Is Henry the prince's boyfriend? You know what? He was a frog. I'm going to assume that the prince was a bi-disaster because frogs just are that. So I'm going to assume now that Henry is the prince's boyfriend and we have an adorable little bisexual polycule going on here. Because otherwise Henry makes no fucking sense. Twice afterwards on the journey there was the same noise, and each time the prince thought it was some part of the carriage that had given way, but it was only the breaking of the bands which bound the heart of the trusty Henry, who was also the faithful Henry, and who was thenceforward free and happy. And that's the end. I'm so confused by Henry. What? Alright, that was... Why? Why Henry? Also, he's the only one with a name. I wonder if I was supposed to read these stories in order. Like, would the weird mouse and duck make sense? Would Henry make sense if I had... And why are we, like, really emphasizing, oh, yeah, trusty old faithful Henry? Definitely a bi-disaster polycule about frogs is what's going on here. Oh, that's why there was 3 bands, so that they can each have a wedding ring. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, we're going with that. That's the way. Yay. Okay. Well, we're going to call it there. I think 3 is a good number. I know there's not much criticism you can give fairy tales, so I hope the comments were sufficiently snarky. So that was The Golden Goose, Hansel and Gretel, and The Frog Prince by the Brothers Grimm. And if you want to hear more Brothers Grimm stories, that sounds amazing. Just let me know. And if there are any other stories that you want to recommend, leave them in the comments below. I'm going to go out and enjoy the snow while we have it because the sun is coming out and it's going to turn to slush. That's all for now. Bye!